The laughter still echoes in my head. That fake, glittering laughter that fills the room before everything falls apart. It was supposed to be a celebration, my in-laws' annual charity gala. A night of champagne, designer smiles, and practiced elegance. A night where we pretended everything was perfect, until he spoke. Ethan, my brother-in-law. He was standing beside the dessert table, looking too calm, too casual. That was the first sign something was wrong. Ethan was the kind of man who always performed, smooth, composed, never missing a beat. But that night, there was something different in his eyes, something cold. He tapped his glass with a fork. The room quieted. "Before we all call it a night," he said, smiling that practiced politician's smile, "I think there's something our lovely sister-in-law should share with us." I froze. The spotlight shifted toward me, literally. One of the stage lights hit my face, blinding and hot. "What are you talking about?" I asked, trying to laugh. But my voice wavered. Ethan tilted his head, holding up a folded sheet of paper. "You know exactly what I'm talking about," he said. "I mean, I wasn't going to say anything, but since you've been giving advice all night about honesty..." My stomach dropped. He unfolded the paper, slowly, dramatically, the way a magician reveals his final trick. I could see my name printed at the top. My handwriting in the margin. My past staring back at me from across the room. He knew. He actually knew. The whispers started immediately. Faces turned. My husband's expression went from polite amusement to confusion, to horror. I could feel the blood drain from my face. "Stop!" I said, stepping forward. "Don't you dare!" But he read it. Word for word, the room gasped. My secret, the one I'd buried years ago, was now public property. And in that instant, every carefully built wall around me shattered. Ethan's smirk was subtle, but I saw it. He enjoyed it, the way I flinched, the way my voice broke, the way my world tilted. My husband didn't say a word. My sister, Ethan's wife, looked like she might faint. And I just stood there exposed, humiliated, my entire body trembling. For a moment, all I could hear was my heartbeat, loud, erratic, drowning everything else out. When I finally found my voice, it came out barely a whisper. "Why would you do that?" Ethan's eyes met mine. He smiled. "Because truth has a way of catching up with all of us." Then he raised his glass. "To honesty." People hesitated. But one by one they raised theirs too. Not for me, but for him. I wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. Instead, I just stood there, tasting the metallic bitterness of shame. Because the worst part wasn't that my secret was out. It was that Ethan's little performance had worked. In less than 2 minutes, he had turned me into the villain. And the more I looked at him, the more I realized something. This wasn't just about exposing me. This was personal. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Ethan had a secret too. One big enough to destroy everything he'd built. He just hadn't realized yet that I already knew it. So when he smirked at me across that glittering table, toasting my humiliation, I smiled back. Just once. Because in that exact moment, I decided something quietly, dangerously simple. If Ethan wanted to play dirty, I'd show him what real exposure looks like. The sound of the champagne flute shattering was the only thing that broke the silence. It wasn't me who dropped it. It was my sister. Her hands were trembling, her face pale beneath the warm amber light of the chandelier. The elegant laughter, the soft jazz, the clinking silver, all gone. The gala had turned into a courtroom, and I was standing on trial. Every pair of eyes was on me. My family, my husband, my in-laws, the people I once thought would protect me. No one spoke, not even my husband. He just stared down at the printed email lying between the wine glasses and the untouched dessert. His jaw tight, his eyes unreadable. I could still hear my brother-in-law's voice replaying in my head. That smug, deliberate tone? Guess honesty really is a family value. He said it like a joke, but his smirk had the weight of a blade. I didn't remember standing up. My body moved before my mind caught up, a trembling hand reaching for that paper, my throat dry as dust. "Where did you get this?" My voice cracked on the words. He leaned back in his chair, legs crossed, one hand lazily twirling the stem of his glass. "Oh, come on," he said. "You really thought no one would find out? It's public record, darling. You just didn't look hard enough." Liar. The email wasn't public. It was private, a message I had sent years ago, one mistake from a past I had buried so deep it hurt to think about. The only way he could have gotten it was by going through my old accounts. I could feel my pulse hammering in my throat, my palms sweating. "You had no right," he raised an eyebrow. "No right? I had every right to protect this family's name. That was the thing about my brother-in-law, Ethan. He was always the savior, the fixer, the one who handled things when they got messy, and people let him because he had that kind of face. Handsome, calm, trustworthy. They never saw the cracks beneath the charm. My sister, his wife, was silent, her lips parted, eyes darting between us. She looked confused, scared. Maybe because she didn't know whether to defend him or me. "Ethan, that's enough," my husband finally said. His voice was low, but not protective. Cautious, controlled, like he was managing a scandal, not standing beside his wife. Ethan smiled faintly. "Just trying to make sure no one's hiding skeletons. Isn't that what we all want?" He raised his glass. "To family transparency." The others hesitated, awkwardly lifting theirs. I didn't. My hands were shaking too hard to hold anything. The air felt like smoke, suffocating, heavy, impossible to breathe in. I wanted to scream, to tell them the truth, that it wasn't as bad as he made it sound, that people change, that the past doesn't define who you are, but no one in that room would have listened. They'd already decided. That night, I drove home alone. My husband stayed behind to smooth things over, his words, not mine. The city lights blurred past the car window, streaks of gold and red against the rain-slick streets. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I kept hearing the whispers, the looks, the silence that followed me out of that room. When I got home, I tore the dress off my body like it was burning me. I stood in front of the mirror shaking, mascara streaks, eyes swollen. The girl in the reflection looked like someone who had been broken open in front of the world. And then, the sound. My phone buzzing, a message. From an unknown number. "Now you know what it feels like," it read. No name, no context. Just that. But I didn't need context. It was him. Ethan. And that's when something inside me shifted. Humiliation turned into something colder, sharper. Because as I stared at that message, a thought crept into my mind. Uninvited. Dangerous but electric. If he wanted to play games, he'd just chosen the wrong opponent, and I already knew where to start. With her. His wife. My sister. Because there was one thing Ethan had forgotten. I knew what secrets looked like, and his eyes had been hiding something for a long, long time. That night, as the rain whispered against my window, I made myself a silent promise. By the time I was done, Ethan wouldn't just regret exposing me. He'd wish he'd never met me. The next morning I woke up to silence. The kind of silence that hums in your ears after a storm. My husband wasn't home. His side of the bed was cold, no text, no note, nothing. Only the faint smell of his cologne on the pillow, and the bitter aftertaste of betrayal still sitting on my tongue. I went downstairs, half expecting him to be in the kitchen, maybe pretending last night never happened, but the house was empty. The half-drunk wine glass on the counter was the only sign anyone had been there at all, and on the dining table, my phone. Blown up with messages, some were from relatives, some from people I barely knew, all of them had the same tone. "Are you okay? We didn't know about that part of your past. You should probably stay off social media for a while." Social media. Of course. My hands shook as I opened my phone. And there it was. The headline on a local gossip blog: Wife of prestigious architect caught in shocking past scandal. Family gala turns explosive. They even used an old photo of me, wide-eyed. Awkward 10 years younger. The kind of picture people dig up when they want to make you look guilty. I could practically hear Ethan's voice behind it. He'd always had friends in the media. He'd made sure this would spread like wildfire. I stood there for a long moment, my chest tightening. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. That's what men like Ethan do. They build their power on image, on control, and when someone threatens that image, even slightly, they strike first. But here's the thing. People like that always make mistakes. Tiny ones. Invisible to everyone else, except someone who's watching closely, and I was watching now. That afternoon, I went to my sister's place. I told myself it was just to clear the air, but if I'm honest, I was looking for cracks. For proof, for something. She opened the door in silk pajamas, her hair a mess, eyes red from crying. "Please don't," she whispered before I could speak. "Not today," I froze. "Not today?" She looked at me like I was a ghost she didn't want to see. "Ethan told me what you did," she said, voice trembling. "He said he had no choice." I almost laughed again. No choice? He humiliated me in front of everyone. She cut me off. "You lied to him. To all of us." I felt my stomach twist. "I made a mistake years ago. I've paid for it." "But what Ethan did, stop," she shouted. "He's my husband. And he's trying to protect this family, just stop making things worse." Her words hit harder than I expected. I realized then, Ethan wasn't just manipulating me. He'd turned her against me too, but that was fine. Because even as she spoke, even as her voice cracked and her eyes filled with tears, I noticed something small. A phone buzzing on the kitchen counter. She turned to grab it, and in that split second the screen lit up. A name. Not hers, not mine, a woman's name, and beneath it, a message preview. Just 5 words. Last night was worth the risk. My blood went cold. Ethan. Her husband. The man who just destroyed me for honesty. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Just watched as my sister picked up the phone, saw the screen and hesitated. Her face went pale. She turned it off quickly and muttered, "It's just work. Work." "Sure." I left soon after. I didn't argue, didn't explain. Just walked out, smiling for the first time in days, because now I knew something he didn't know I knew, and that made all the difference. As I drove away, the message replayed in my mind like a drumbeat. Last night was worth the risk. He thought he'd exposed my past, but I'd just uncovered the secret that could end his future. The next few days felt like I was living in a movie I hadn't agreed to star in. Everyone around me was pretending nothing had happened. No calls, no apologies, no explanations, just polite silence. That kind of silence that feels like exile. My husband came home late every night, avoiding eye contact, avoiding me. I'd hear the garage door open, the muffled sound of his shoes on the marble floor, and then the shower running. Always the same routine. He'd slide into bed without saying a word, and I'd lie there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that text message on my sister's phone. Last night was worth the risk. It haunted me, because Ethan wasn't stupid. He was careful, calculated, every move planned 3 steps ahead. For him to slip up like that, to let a message like that appear in plain sight, that wasn't carelessness. That was arrogance, and arrogance I could use. So I started watching, listening. I didn't have a plan yet. Not a full one, but I had a direction. I knew where Ethan worked. His schedule. His habits. The way he always left his house precisely at 8:30 a.m. The way he always stopped by the same coffee shop. Cafe Luna, for his morning espresso and phone calls. That's where I went first. It was a Tuesday. Cold gray with rain that made the sidewalk shimmer like wet glass. I sat by the window with a cappuccino I didn't drink, my coat collar turned up, eyes hidden behind sunglasses. I didn't have to wait long. Ethan walked in exactly on time, navy suit, crisp white shirt, that smug posture that screamed confidence. He ordered his drink, smiled at the barista, and took a seat by the corner window. A few minutes later, she appeared, the woman in the red coat. She was younger, maybe late 20s, polished but not flashy. She carried herself like someone who knew she shouldn't be there but couldn't help it. She walked straight to his table. No hesitation, no awkwardness. Like this wasn't their first time. Ethan's whole expression changed when he saw her. That stiff, polished smirk melted into something softer, intimate. He leaned in close, said something that made her laugh. A low, secret kind of laugh. I took a photo. One quick click. Nothing dramatic, no flash, just proof. But as I watched them, something unexpected happened. I didn't feel satisfaction or anger. I felt sadness. Because as much as I hated Ethan, as much as I wanted to see him fall, my sister didn't deserve this. She didn't deserve to be lied to, manipulated, used, and yet, part of me wondered if this was how she saw me now. The liar, the disappointment, the problem that needed to be fixed. I clenched my jaw and looked away. No, this wasn't the same. Ethan's betrayal was deliberate. Mine had been a mistake, one he'd used like ammunition. The difference was I wasn't going to let him win. I followed them that day. Not far, just enough to see them get into his car and drive toward the old part of town. The kind of area where no one knew who you were and no one asked questions. I didn't need to see more. I already knew what was happening. That night I opened my laptop, pulled up the photo, zoomed in. His hand was on hers. Her eyes were lit up in that guilty, glowing way. And then I noticed something else. A tiny gold bracelet on her wrist, engraved with 2 letters, E.W. Ethan's initials. My heart pounded. I scrolled through my sister's Instagram, family photos, vacations, charity events. And there it was, that same bracelet. He'd bought it for her birthday last year. The man was arrogant, but he wasn't just cheating. He was recycling gifts. My disgust turned into something sharper. I knew what I had now. Enough to destroy his reputation, the thing he prized most. But I wasn't ready to use it. Not yet. Not until I knew why. Because deep down, I knew there was more to this than just lust or ego. Ethan wasn't risking everything for fun. He was covering something up, and I was going to find out what it was, even if it meant burning the entire family facade to the ground. That night, as I lay awake, my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. Stop digging. You don't know what you're starting. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. It wasn't anonymous this time. It was signed. When I saw that message, stop digging. You don't know what you're starting. I didn't freeze this time. I smiled. Because finally, Ethan had slipped. He wasn't confident anymore. He was worried, and worry meant leverage. For days I'd been spiraling, replaying that night at the Gala, drowning in humiliation, wondering how to fix the image he destroyed. But in that one moment, all of that vanished. This wasn't about damage control anymore. This was about war. I typed back 3 words. Too late, Ethan. Then I blocked the number. I spent the next week quietly putting things in motion. Step 1, gather proof. Step 2, plant doubt. Step 3, make him unravel. Simple, clean, precise. But before I could do any of that, I needed an ally. Someone on the inside. Someone who had seen enough of Ethan's charm to know it was fake, and there was one person who came to mind. Lara. She was Ethan's assistant, and if rumors were true, she'd been more than that at one point. She'd worked for him for years, loyal, efficient, invisible. The kind of woman who knew everyone's secrets but never said a word. I found her at Cafe Luna, the same place I'd first seen Ethan with the woman in the red coat. She was sitting alone, scrolling through her phone, her posture tight with nerves. I didn't waste time pretending. Lara, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. I know about him. Her head snapped up. Her eyes darted around the cafe. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. Neither should you, I said quietly. Especially if you still value your job. Her jaw tightened. What do you want from me? Information? She hesitated. About what? I leaned in, lowering my voice. About the woman in the red coat? And whatever Ethan's been doing that has him sending me threats. Her expression shifted. Guilt. Fear. Something else. You don't know what you're getting into, she murmured. Then explain it to me. She looked at me for a long moment, like she was deciding whether to lie or finally let go of a secret she'd been carrying too long. Then she sighed. You didn't hear it from me, she said, and that's when the first real piece of the puzzle fell into place. According to Lara, the woman in the red coat, her name was Camilla. She wasn't just some affair. She worked in real estate. She'd been helping Ethan move some assets quietly off the record. Money laundering? I asked. Lara didn't answer. But she didn't have to. She just looked at me with this hollow kind of fear that told me everything I needed to know. How long? I asked. A year? Maybe more. But lately, it's been getting worse. I sat back processing. Ethan, the man who lectured everyone on morality, who exposed me to protect the family's name, was laundering money through his mistress. It was almost poetic. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. She hesitated again, her voice barely above a whisper. Because he's planning something. Something that might drag everyone down with him. Including you, I frowned. What do you mean? But before she could answer, her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen, and her face went white. She stood up abruptly. I have to go. Lara, I shouldn't have said anything, she said, eyes darting toward the door. He knows everything. You don't understand? And then she was gone. Just like that. I sat there staring at the empty chair, my mind racing. Ethan was hiding more than an affair. And if Lara was scared, that meant whatever he was planning wasn't just illegal, it was dangerous. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt amplified. The hum of the refrigerator, the ticking clock, the faint creak of the floorboards. I sat by the window, watching the city lights blur through the rain, and thought about all the years I'd spent letting people like Ethan define who I was. The quiet, polite wife. The mistake maker. The one who didn't fight back. Not anymore. This time, I wasn't going to beg for forgiveness or wait for someone to save me. I was going to end him. But not by yelling. Not by accusing. By exposing him, the same way he'd exposed me. Except when I did it, it would be final. No coming back. No excuses, because Ethan's greatest weapon was his reputation. And I was about to turn it into his greatest curse. Just before dawn, my phone buzzed again, this time with a photo. It was of me, taken from outside my house. The caption read, "Still think you can win?" The photo haunted me, not because of what it showed, but because of what it meant. Someone had been outside my house, watching me, waiting for the perfect moment to let me know I wasn't safe. It wasn't a random threat. It was deliberate. A warning, Ethan's way of saying, I see you. I sat there on the couch, the glow of the phone lighting up my shaking hands. The blinds were half open. The street outside looked empty, calm even. But I could feel it. The weight of unseen eyes. I shut the blinds, locked the doors, checked every window, twice. Then I sat in silence, listening. Every creak of the house felt louder than usual. Every passing car made my pulse spike. It's strange how fast fear turns into anger. By midnight, I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. Ethan thought he could intimidate me. He thought he could break me like everyone else. But what he didn't realize was, fear doesn't destroy some people. It reshapes them, and I was changing. The next morning, I drove straight to my sister's house. She answered the door with that same tired look, the one that made her seem like she was constantly walking on eggshells. Can we talk? I asked. She hesitated. He's not home. Good. She stepped aside reluctantly, letting me in. The air smelled like coffee and tension. Her wedding photos lined the hallway, Ethan smiling in everyone, perfect and polished, a lie frozen in time. I walked into the living room. Something felt off immediately. The curtains were drawn tight, the TV muted, and her phone, that same phone from before, sat on the table, screen down. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded too quickly. "I'm fine." "No, you're not." Her eyes flicked toward the stairs, then back to me. "You shouldn't be here." "Because of him?" She didn't answer, but her silence was enough. "Does he know I came?" "Probably," she exhaled shakily. "He always knows everything." That sentence stuck with me. He always knows everything. I leaned closer. "Does he go through your phone?" Her lips parted. "He says it's for security reasons. That people try to take advantage of us because of who he is. Does he track you?" She didn't reply, but she didn't deny it either. I felt a chill crawl down my spine. "Then he's probably tracking me too." She looked terrified. "Please stop this. Whatever you're doing, stop before it's too late." I smiled sadly. "It's already too late." When I left her house, I checked my car for tracking devices. Under the bumper, behind the license plate, even in the trunk. And then, I found it. A small black GPS tracker. Magnetized. Clean. Professional. My breath caught. My hands were trembling as I held it up to the light. He'd been following me for weeks. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the tracker on the counter. The rain tapped against the windows like impatient fingers. Ethan had built his empire on control. Control over his image, his family, his wife. But now I had proof, not just of his affair, but of his obsession, his paranoia, his surveillance. I picked up my phone and called a friend, one of the few people I still trusted. Her name was Maya, a journalist. "Tell me you're not calling to cry again," she said as soon as she answered. "Not this time," I said. "I have a story." Maya laughed softly. "Oh yeah, about what?" "About a man who hides behind a perfect family name," I said. "A man who launders money through his mistress while tracking his own relatives like criminals." The silence on the other end stretched for a few seconds. Then, "Send me everything," I hesitated. "Not yet. Why not?" "Because I want to make sure he sees it coming. I want him to know what it feels like to watch everything you built crumble, inch by inch." I could hear Maya's grin through the phone. "God, I've missed this version of you." I hung up and stared out the window, watching the storm gather outside. For the first time in weeks, I felt calm, focused. This wasn't chaos anymore. This was precision. Ethan had made the mistake of turning this into a game of power. He thought he could watch me, manipulate me, own the narrative, but what he didn't realize was I was already rewriting the ending, and this time, he'd be the one caught on camera. The next morning, I got a new message. No words this time, just a single photo. It was of my sister, sitting alone in her car, crying, and beneath it, a timestamp, 5 minutes ago. The message came at dawn. No words. Just that photo, my sister, in her car, crying. The timestamp read 5 minutes ago. That meant someone was watching her right now. My stomach dropped. I grabbed my keys and ran out the door. My phone buzzed again as I slid into my car. Another message. This time it was a video. I hit play. It was my sister, sitting behind the wheel, mascara smudged, eyes red and empty. She whispered something I couldn't hear over the engine noise. Then she flinched, like someone had just knocked on her window. The screen went black. Then came the text. "You should have listened. Ethan." It had to be. I drove like a maniac, running red lights, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. When I pulled up to her house, the driveway was empty. The front door was locked. I banged on it until my knuckles bled. "Sarah!" No answer. Then I saw it. Her car, parked 2 streets over, half hidden under a tree. I sprinted toward it. The rain was coming down hard, soaking through my clothes, blurring everything. My hands shook as I yanked the door open. And there she was. She was sitting still, staring straight ahead, hands gripping the steering wheel. "Sarah?" I whispered. She turned her head slowly. Her face was pale, almost lifeless. "You shouldn't be here. What happened?" "Did he—" She shook her head. "He said if I talked to you again, he'd ruin everything. He'd take the house, the kids, everything we built." I swallowed hard. "Then let him try." Her voice broke. "You don't understand. He can. He has the money, the lawyers, the friends in the right places. If I fight back, he'll destroy me." I reached for her hand. "Then let me do it for you." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You already tried that once. Remember how it ended?" Her words hit me like a slap. She was talking about my secret. The one Ethan had exposed. The one that had cost me my job, my reputation, everything I'd worked for. He'd dug up a stupid, desperate mistake from years ago, something I thought I'd buried forever. One impulsive act I wasn't proud of. He'd used it to humiliate me in front of my entire family. Now he was using her shame as a weapon, too, and that was the moment I decided. Enough. I couldn't just expose Ethan. I had to end him. "Sarah," I said quietly, gripping her shoulders, "I need you to trust me." She blinked through her tears. "How?" "Because this time I'm not running from the truth. I'm using it." She stared at me, confused, until I pulled something from my pocket. The GPS tracker I'd found under my car. Her breath caught. "What is that?" "Proof," I said. "He's been watching us both. Every move. Every conversation. And I'm done pretending it's okay." She looked terrified. "If he finds out you know, then he'll know I'm not scared anymore." For a second, we just sat there in silence, two sisters drenched in rain and secrets, trying to find a way out of a cage we didn't even build. Then I said it. "I'm going to take everything from him. Piece by piece." She shook her head. "He's too powerful." I smiled faintly. So was every man who thought I wouldn't fight back. That night, I set up cameras around my house. Hidden ones, the kind that don't blink. I changed all my passwords, factory reset my phone, and started digging. Every email, every business record, every shell company tied to Ethan's name. I wanted something that could burn his empire to ash. By 3 a.m., I found it. A string of offshore transfers. Hidden accounts in names that didn't exist. One of them matched the alias of his mistress, the same woman from the hotel photo. He wasn't just cheating. He was laundering money through her business, tens of thousands of dollars, funneled quietly out of family investments. My pulse quickened. He'd made me look like a liar, a failure, a disgrace. "But this was a federal crime. I saved every file." Every screenshot. Every timestamp. And when I looked at the clock again, the sky outside had started to pale. Morning light filtered through the blinds, cold and sharp. I whispered to myself, "This is it. This is how it ends." Then, my phone buzzed one last time. A message from an unknown number. "You think you're clever?" Attached, a photo of me, taken through my kitchen window. That meant he knew. He knew I was fighting back. That night, I realized I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was the prey. And Ethan? He was just getting started. The next morning felt wrong. You know that silence that doesn't feel peaceful? The kind that hums under your skin, like the air is holding its breath? That's what I woke up to. My phone was gone, not misplaced. Gone. The charger was still plugged in. The sheets still messy from where I'd fallen asleep at my desk. But the phone, my lifeline, my proof, had vanished. My chest tightened. I tore through drawers, cushions, bags. Nothing. Then I saw it. The faint outline of a shoe print near my window. A muddy one. My heart stopped. I checked the lock, scratched. Forced open. He'd been here. I felt the air leave my lungs in slow, ragged gasps. The cameras. I ran to my laptop and opened the security feed, all blank. Every file wiped clean. Every backup deleted, except one. A single still image remained. Ethan, standing in my kitchen, looking straight into the camera, smiling, The timestamp? 3:17 a.m. He'd known. He'd known I was watching. And instead of hiding, he'd given me a show. I slammed the laptop shut, shaking. For a second, I thought about calling the police. But then reality hit. Who would they believe? A disgraced woman with a ruined reputation? Or a wealthy, respected businessman with powerful friends and an airtight smile? He'd already destroyed my credibility once. He could do it again with a single phone call. But what he didn't realize, what none of them did, was that I'd learned from the first time he humiliated me. I'd already made duplicates, encrypted. Backups of the files were stored on a private cloud, hidden under a fake name, with automatic links ready to send if I didn't log in within 72 hours. So if he wanted a war, he was about to get one. I walked into work that morning with a calm I didn't feel. My husband barely looked at me at breakfast. He was still reeling from Ethan's revelation, still unsure what to believe. But that was fine. Let him doubt me, for now, because soon the truth would crush every lie Ethan had built. Still, something about the way people stared at me that morning. It was off. Whispers followed me down the hall. Pitying looks. Then one of my coworkers pulled me aside. "Hey, are you okay?" I frowned. "Why wouldn't I be?" She hesitated, then handed me her phone. "You haven't seen this?" It was a video. Posted anonymously, my voice. My face, but the words weren't mine. Spliced audio. Deep fake footage. I was confessing to the very thing Ethan had accused me of. And worse, it looked real. Too real. The comments were vicious. Disgusting. She deserves everything she gets. Family of criminals. My vision blurred. I could barely breathe. Ethan had gone digital. He was rewriting the story. I stormed out of the office, shaking, and called Sarah. "He's framing me. Again." She answered in a whisper. "He's watching me too." I could hear the panic in her voice. "There are cameras in the house," she said. I found one in the vent. For a second, everything spun. He wasn't just trying to control me. He was tightening a noose around both of us. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my dark living room, lights off, staring out the window at the faint reflection of my own face. And then I saw him, standing across the street, just barely visible under the streetlight. Hands in his pockets, watching. I froze. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. But then he lifted his hand wide and waved. That smile again, like this was all just a game. My fingers clenched into fists. Fine. If he wanted to play games, I'd play one he couldn't win. I grabbed my laptop and opened a blank document. Subject line, confession, but this time it wouldn't be mine. It would be his. I wrote the story, the entire story. The shell companies, the mistress, the stolen funds, the screenshots, the transfers, the aliases. I attached every document, every trace of proof. Then, I scheduled it. If anything happened to me, if I didn't cancel the timer every 24 hours, that email would automatically send to his board of directors, his wife, and every major news outlet in the city. Insurance. For the first time in weeks, I felt something strange, calm. He could break into my home, destroy my devices, ruin my name. But if he touched me again, he'd lose everything. But the next morning, when I checked the email timer, it had already been canceled by someone else. My stomach dropped the second I saw it. The timer gone. The safety email, the one thing standing between me and Ethan's total control, had been canceled. By someone else. That meant he'd hacked into my system. Or worse, someone close to me had given him access. I checked the activity log. Last login, 2:03 a.m. IP address, home network. My hand started trembling. That meant whoever canceled it had been inside my house. Again. The walls felt like they were closing in. My chest tightened. I glanced at the window, blinds drawn. Shadows still. But that same feeling crawled up my spine. That gut-deep certainty that I wasn't alone. He wanted me paranoid. He wanted me to break before I could fight. Not this time. I forced myself to breathe. Slow. Quiet. Then I pulled out my backup drive, the one even he didn't know about, hidden inside a hollowed-out book on my shelf. Every piece of evidence I'd gathered, his offshore transfers, his mistress's fake business, his private messages, his threats, it was all there. And if he thought fear would stop me, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. By dawn, I had a plan. Not a small one, a final one. I texted Sarah, "Meet me tonight. Somewhere public." She hesitated before replying, "He'll find out." That's the point. I chose the venue carefully. His favorite kind of place. Classy, elegant, expensive. The kind of restaurant where reputation is everything. When Sarah arrived, she looked terrified. Pale, exhausted, like she hadn't slept in days. "Are you sure about this?" she whispered. I nodded. "I'm done being scared." We sat near the back, angled so we could see the door. The place was quiet. Soft jazz, low light, clinking glasses. You'd never think a war was about to start here. And right on cue, Ethan walked in. Perfect suit. Perfect posture. Perfect fake smile. He saw us, and that smile faltered. I raised my glass. "Evening, Ethan." He approached slowly, eyes sharp. "This is bold of you." "Not really," I said. "You've been watching me anyway." He smirked. "I warned you to stop digging." "And I warned you," I said, sliding my phone across the table, "that I'm not afraid anymore." He glanced down. The screen was on, recording. "Smile for the camera," I said softly. "You love an audience, don't you?" His jaw clenched. "You think this will save you?" I leaned forward. "No, this will." I tapped my phone, and on cue, my laptop back home went live. Every file I had on him, every screenshot, every bank record, uploaded automatically to a private unlisted live stream. And I wasn't the only one watching. Because before coming here, I'd sent a link to every major investor in his company. Every one of his board members. Ethan's face drained of color. "You wouldn't?" "Oh, I already did." Sarah stared between us, speechless. He reached across the table, voice low and venomous. "You just destroyed yourself." "No," I said, meeting his gaze. "I destroyed the mask you hide behind." He lunged for the phone. But before he could touch it, Sarah's voice cracked through the air. "Don't!" She stood shaking. "I'm done letting you hurt people." And for the first time, I saw it. Fear. Actual fear flickering in his eyes. Because he knew the performance was over. The waiter froze mid-step. People turned to stare. The perfect little illusion of the respectable family man was unraveling, thread by thread, right in front of strangers who would tell the story 100 times by morning. He straightened slowly, trying to recover his composure. "You think anyone will believe this?" I smiled faintly. "They don't have to. The IRS will." His jaw twitched. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The live stream was still going. The files still uploading. The evidence now out of his control. I sat back, calm, almost serene. "You wanted to expose my secret," I said. "So I exposed yours." For a long, silent moment, he didn't speak. Then, under his breath, barely audible, "You don't know what you've done." And then he left. Just turned and walked out. Sarah's hand was trembling as she grabbed mine. "Is it over?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe it was. But when I glanced down at my phone, I saw a notification. Private message. From Ethan. "If I go down, you go with me." That's when I realized this wasn't the end of the war. It was only the beginning. And Ethan's next move would be lethal. For 3 days, I didn't sleep. Not really. Every noise outside my window made my heart race. Every vibration of my phone made me flinch. Ethan's message, "If I go down, you go with me," was burned into my brain like a brand. And part of me believed it. He was too powerful, too connected, too dangerous. But there's one thing men like him never understand. When you've already lost everything once, you stop fearing the fall. and I was done being afraid. The next morning, the news broke. Local investor under federal investigation for financial misconduct. Ethan's name was everywhere. The leaked files, the mistress's fake business, the offshore accounts. My live stream had done its job. It had reached the right people. By noon, his office was swarmed with reporters, cameras, questions, headlines. By evening, his company had suspended him. And by the next morning, he was gone, vanished. No calls, no texts. Not even Sarah knew where he went. She was a mess, shaking, crying, torn between relief and grief. I stayed by her side, because despite everything, she was my sister. And we were survivors now, scarred but standing. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said I should. Hello! A pause. Then a voice, cold, cracked, familiar. You think this is justice? It was Ethan. My throat tightened. You ruined your own life. He laughed, hollow, unhinged. You really believe you won? You don't win against people like me. You just survive until we decide otherwise. I said nothing, just listened to the sound of his breathing on the other end. Then he whispered, "Check your email." The line went dead. My hands shook as I opened my inbox. One new message, no subject line. Inside, a single photo, me, standing outside Sarah's house that morning, taken from a distance. And below it, 6 words, "We're not done." Not even close. I should have felt fear, but I didn't. I felt something colder, stronger, resolve, because this time, I wasn't alone. The investigators had already called. They wanted my full statement. The digital trail I'd kept, the timestamps, the messages, everything. I told them everything. They asked how I'd found it all. I said, because he made me look. The irony wasn't lost on me. His need to destroy me had exposed him. Weeks passed. The investigation widened. His accounts were frozen. His mistress flipped. The board replaced him. And one afternoon, while Sarah and I were having coffee in the same kitchen where he'd once cornered her, she looked up at me and said quietly, "You saved me." I smiled faintly. No, we saved each other. Because the truth was, this wasn't just revenge. It was reclamation. He had spent years controlling the narrative, painting me as the failure, the liar, the disgrace. And now, the mask was gone. The empire was ashes. It didn't happen all at once. But little by little, people stopped whispering when I walked into rooms. My husband apologized, really apologized. He'd seen the truth for himself, and he couldn't unsee it. And me? I started sleeping again. Not the restless kind of sleep you get when you're running from ghosts, but the deep, dreamless kind you get when you've finally made peace with your scars. Ethan was gone, officially. No one knew where. Some said he fled the country. Some said he was arrested quietly. I didn't care, because for the first time in years, I was free. Free from his shadow. Free from my shame. Free from the secret he thought would define me forever. The secret that had once been my weakness had become my weapon. And in the end, that's the thing about people like Ethan. They always think exposure is destruction, but sometimes it's transformation. Because when you've been stripped of everything, when the world has seen your worst and you're still standing, there's nothing left for anyone to take. Only something left to build. And maybe that's the real glow-up. Not the revenge, not the victory, but the quiet, steady peace that comes after. The kind that says, "You didn't break me. You just built the woman who finally fought back." And that's my story. The night my brother-in-law exposed my secret, I thought my life was over. But it turned out to be the beginning of everything I was meant to become. What about you? What would you have done in my situation? Would you have stayed quiet? Or fought back? Tell me in the comments. And remember, sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's becoming someone they can never control again.